On October 1st, 2000, the Pittsburgh Pirates lost to the Chicago Cubs 10-9. This capped off the franchise's 8th straight losing season since falling in the 1992 NLCS, but tonight wasn't about that. Tonight was about the team's final night in Three Rivers Stadium, their home since 1970. Their tenure in the park included them adding 2 more World Series titles during the dominant 70s, a rebuild through the 80s, and nearly returning to the Fall Classic in the early 90s. As the legendary Willie Stargell took the mound to throw out the final pitch, it was a heartwarming yet haunting reminder of how far the team had fallen. After being passed over for the managerial opening in 1985, Pop spent much of the 90s alienated from the fan base that once hailed him as a hero. He and the so-called new Pirates hadn't seen eye to eye since then, and it wouldn't be until 1997 that he was welcomed back into the fold. But on this night, none of that matters. Nor does the fact that his pitch barely makes it off the mound due to his declining health. What matters is the moment, a celebration of the franchise's past while it looks to the future. Willie Stargell would pass away 6 months later on April 9th, 2001, the same day as the Pirates' first game at PNC Park. A day meant for celebration became a day of reflection as the team mourned the loss of its longtime heartbeat. The Pirates were fully into the future now, searching for new heroes that could join Stargell and Bronze outside their sparkling new stadium. But 12 seasons later, these new Pirates were still searching for that buried treasure. What happened?
Listen to the game with my radio on. I belong to the rhythm of a buckle song. To a bar full town with nobody out. Sound the feet line drive, everybody shout. For our home team, a new pirate generation. Everybody shout. Let's go Pirates! Every side of the Pittsburgh Pride at the old ball game. Everybody shout. Let's go Pirates!
In 2009, the Pirates finished 62-99 to wrap up their 17th straight losing season. Over PNC Park's 9-year existence, the few fans in attendance had yet to see a team finish over 500. That broke a 64-year-old record set by the Philadelphia Phillies in 1948. Those Phillies followed their 16 losing seasons with a World Series appearance 2 years later. These Pirates decided to shake things up by staying under 500 until they hit an even 20. Aside from those Phillies, no other Big Four franchise has come within 5 seasons of what these Pirates managed. The current challenger is the NBA's Sacramento Kings, but they still have 6 years to go just for a tie. Postseason droughts are more common in baseball than other American sports since it's historically had far fewer playoff spots. In 1994, the MLB was realigned to have 3 division winners and 1 wildcard team in each league, doubling the spots from 4 to 8. Between 1994 and 2012, wildcard teams averaged 92 wins, meaning a winning season didn't guarantee a playoff berth. As of this video, the Seattle Mariners have the longest playoff drought in the MLB at 19 years, but had a winning season as recently as 2018. To go even 10 years without a winning record is no easy feat. The problem with the Pirates wasn't just that they couldn't reach 500, it's that they never changed. To compare, let's take a look at every MLB team's average winning percentage during that time. The average standard deviation of these percentages was 62. So, for example, if a team had a winning percentage of .450 one year, the next they would have either 512 or 388 on average. Some teams were outliers, such as the Rays and Tigers, who had below average winning percentages, but it varied much more. They were usually bad, but very unpredictable. The Braves and Yankees had above average winning percentages and low variance. They were consistently excellent. The Pirates produced the second lowest standard deviation of 37, only trailing the Dodgers, but mustered the lowest average winning percentage of .434. They are an anomaly, isolated in a losing wasteland from the rest of baseball. Rather than bottoming out for a rebuild or spending to compete, the Pirates had no clear direction. To illustrate this better, here's the winning percentage of the Philadelphia Phillies. They plummeted after losing the 1993 World Series and became a below-average franchise in the late 90s before rock bottom in 2000. However, those years of losing translated to a dominant decade where they made 2 World Series trips and won one of them. Unlike the Phillies, who successfully rebuilt, the Pirates' lack of direction doomed them to wander the wasteland of 400 baseball. Put side by side, the difference is staggering. The Pirates were consistently nothing. You knew what to expect, but were disappointed nonetheless. To anyone except the fans that stayed, this team was a non-factor in the baseball landscape. So why would anyone stay? Who is this team, and how did it get this bad? For Pirates fans, this is almost universally agreed upon as the moment that plunged them into their 20-year odyssey. Sid Bream, a 31-year-old first baseman lacking anything resembling speed, scoring the game-winning run against his former team in Game 7 of the 1992 National League Championship Series. A series that the Pirates once trailed 3-1 before tying and leading heading into the final inning. In a season where they were written off despite winning the NL East the past 2 seasons. Everything that went right that season came down to one inning where, as centerfield Andy Van Slyke put it, all the stars lined up against us. Mike Lavalier, seen here failing to tag out Bream, has never rewatched the game. Jose Lind, the second baseman who won a Gold Glove this season, hasn't watched postseason baseball since, haunted by his rare error that could have won the game. The Pirates fell just short of the World Series for the 3rd straight year, a somber swan song for the 2 stars ready to leave in free agency, Doug Drabek and Barry Bonds. Bonds, arguably the best offensive player in baseball, had outgrown the small market Pirates and would command a contract that was fittingly large. Drabek, the Cy Young winning pitcher that the Pirates relied on time and again on the mound, was getting too old for a team staring down a rebuild. Despite their best efforts, all they had to show for their time in Pittsburgh was this picture. A moment in time that perfectly encapsulates those 90s Pirates teams. Close, but not close enough. And so, when Bonds became a Giant and Drabek became an Astro, the Pirates became a team without a face. Foundation that went along with their 2 pillars was slowly stripped away. 6 months after the Bream slide, 30 of the 54 players in spring training were new faces. The Pirates hitched their hopes to young role players, but the results were mixed. Mediocrity was slowly clutching the organization. 1994 was no better. The only baseball relevance the Pirates had was hosting the All-Star Game at Three Rivers Stadium, where the home fans got to watch Bonds and Drabek reunite while sporting different uniforms. Pirates' on-field success was stuck in neutral, although the labor strike in August stopped the season before it could get any worse. When play resumed in 1995, the losing continued on and off the field. Trying to reinvigorate fans, the team introduced the Buccaneer mascot to join the longtime Pirate Parrot. While the Parrot had survived its own issues during the Pittsburgh drug trials, the Buccaneer literally got into hot water when its actor was caught skinny dipping in a city pool at 3 a.m. While he was able to avoid serious charges, the Pirates couldn't avoid ridicule from Jay Leno and other major news outlets. The Buccaneer was discontinued after the season. As the MLB tried to patch fan relations following the ugly labor strike, fans in Pittsburgh were facing a far more pressing issue: relocation. Since 1986, the Pirates were owned by the Pittsburgh Associates, a consortium that bought the team to keep them in town until a long-term owner emerged. That group was now looking to sell, and the candidates that emerged set off the relocation rumor mill. Opinions in the baseball community ranged greatly, leaving fans apprehensive about the team's future. They attended the final home game of the season for many reasons. Some wanted to see what could be the last Pirates game in Pittsburgh, while others came to join in the chanting of "Keep our Bucks" and a more feeble "Please don't leave." Preliminary inquiries had been made about moving the Pirates, among other teams, to the DC metro area. However, hope emerged in Kevin McClatchy, a Sacramento newspaper heir who had hastily gathered a group of investors to make an offer for the team. His bid would keep the Bucks in the Burgh, but if it fell through, they'd likely move 4 hours south. Despite dealing with investors pulling out and having to raise more cash, McClatchy's purchase became official on February 14, 1996. Fans rejoiced as the 109-year-old franchise would remain in the Steel City. McClatchy's next goal was to get approval on building a new stadium, a contentious point among Pittsburgh taxpayers and city officials. That would come later. For now, there was baseball to be played. McClatchy's Pirates were quickly dealt a major blow, losing manager Jim Leyland. The oft-proclaimed best manager in baseball stepped down to chase an elusive World Series title in Florida, leaving third base coach Gene Lamont to lead the team. With a new manager, owner, and logo for a supposed new era of Pirates baseball, the team had certainly shed its 90s identity. Ownership drastically cut payroll to a meager $9 million, which was less than some free agents signed for that offseason. With only 2 players making $400,000, the 97 squad was considered a lock to lose 100 games, with some predicting as many as 120. The rebuild was officially underway. Wait, what? The Freak Show Pirates took everyone by surprise and kept pace with their much more imposing division foes pretty much throughout the season. The highlight came in Francisco Cordova and Ricardo Rincon shutting down the Astros and leading the Pirates to the first extra-inning combined no-hitter in MLB history. Despite looking like they might crash the postseason party, they ran out of gas down the stretch. The legacy of the Freak Show Pirates is more of an outlier now than it seemed then, and it may have done more harm than good to the franchise. Management kept the payroll low, but the team couldn't replicate the success they had in 1997. The team followed up the Freak Show with a roller coaster 4-year span, taking a huge dip before returning to being almost good. They rang in the new millennium by borrowing their 1998 record. That 2000 pitching staff was especially notorious, throwing 67 wild pitches and issuing a team record 711 walks. While a new stadium was being constructed, the team it was made for sought desperately for a base to build upon. Despite all the struggles of the 80s and 90s, Three Rivers Stadium stood through it all. Stadiums are made by memories, and the dual-purpose field had plenty on both the diamond and the gridiron for the Pirates and Steelers. However, like all good things, it had to come to an end. A new chapter was beginning for the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates were Pittsburgh's. Kevin McClatchy ensured that 5 years ago. But if they were to get a long-term baseball sanctuary, the bill would have to be Pittsburgh's too. Like many other multi-purpose fields of its era, Three Rivers Stadium was built entirely for function while ignoring the form. Before its 30th birthday, the Steelers and Pirates had grown tired of being roommates and pressured the city for separate venues. The initial proposal called for tax increases to fund the stadiums and several other city projects, but this was flatly rejected. This wouldn't deter the teams as they worked on the more promising Plan B. Despite outcry over public funds being spent on sports teams and a subsequent lawsuit, a deal with an $809 million price tag was struck. PNC Park's construction was officially underway. After the news of the deal broke, McClatchy was relieved and excited. But once the stadium opened, he came under fire for banning bottled water at the park. With the team under the microscope all year, Bottled Water Gate received front-page attention, much to McClatchy's disbelief. As the week passed, the media pressure rose and fans brainstormed protests, such as leaving bottles with security guards to form massive piles outside the gates. McClatchy eventually conceded. As the new season approached, the Pirates' marketing department was developing many different avenues of entertainment and fan engagement both inside and outside of the stadium. The goal was to create a splash for PNC's opening, with a new kind of ballpark experience. One major part of this project was the commissioning of a team theme song. The song was meant to both excite and engage fans, but also soften the effects of the new team identity and the controversy surrounding the stadium vote. The team wanted the lyrics to evoke the classic ballpark experience, touch on the key moments of the Pirates' past, and look towards a hopeful future, hence the name A New Pirate Generation. The team also needed a new slogan, and marketing came up with one, Built for Baseball. A bit of foreshadowing by focusing on the stadium and not the team, but at the time it made sense. They also ditched the script lettering for a new font and fresh uniforms. All in all, they wanted to show that this was a new team with a new direction. The streak was still young, but 10 years was approaching soon. It was time for baseball. The first game in their new home was foreboding, as the Pirates honored Willie Stargell's passing by getting clobbered 8-2 by the Reds. As the season progressed, losses and injuries piled up. Pitcher Chris Benson, a former first overall pick, missed the entire season and joined 3 other starters that entered 2001 on the DL. Catcher Jason Kendall took a pitch to his thumb in the first week of the season, and while he played through it, trainers eventually had to tape his thumb in place to keep him going. The injury problem was so severe that, at one point, 17 players were on the DL at once. The team was spiraling fast and quickly fell to 20 games below 500. Questions were mounting for first-year manager Lloyd McClendon. A player for the Pirates in the 90s, McClendon was a far more fiery personality behind the bench than his predecessors. After a loss on April 28th, McClendon stormed into the clubhouse and kicked a chair so hard it lodged in the ceiling. McClendon was embarrassed about the outburst, saying, "I used a lot of words that I'm sure made my mother turn over in her grave." Kendall put it much simpler. Then there was the case of June 26th. In the 7th inning of a tight game against the Brewers, Kendall was called out on a bang-bang play at first. McClendon was livid, and let first base umpire Rick Reed hear about it. Reed had no time for the plea and promptly ejected the Pirates skipper. McClendon wasn't going alone, though, and picked up first base to join him in the clubhouse.
Quite a display from Lloyd McClendon. He is ejected.
The base even got a souvenir hat. Whether it was an act of frustration or defiance against the fans that called him soft, the incident rallied the team to win the game in extra innings. These Pirates became accustomed to massive losses, sporting the worst run differential in the league. On July 28th, they were heading for another blowout, trailing the Astros 8-2 in the first game of a doubleheader. Houston reliever Michael Jackson retired the first 2 Pirates on just 3 pitches, bringing Kevin Young to the plate. Young laced a double, good for his stats, but it just seemed to delay the inevitable. In stepped 34-year-old Pat Mears, playing in what would become his last season in the majors. He smacked the final home run of his career and cut the deficit to 8-4. The next 3 at-bats went as follows: single, walk, RBI single. With the 6-run lead cut in half, Jackson was relieved for all-star closer Billy Wagner. Wagner immediately plunked Jason Kendall, loading the bases and bringing up Brian Giles. Giles was acquired in 1999 and became one of the best home run hitters in Pirates history. He was the first player in franchise history to have back-to-back seasons with 30 home runs and 100 RBIs. Despite all this, the Astros' win probability showed they were still in the driver's seat. And on a 1-0 pitch,
and a 1-ball pitch. Giles swings, drive to right field. Buccos win by way of a grand slam. Brian Giles, a line drive, grand slam into the right field seats. Count them. 6, 7, 8. Giles makes 9. Bucks win 9-8. There was no doubt about it.
Giles capped off an iconic 6-run comeback in the bottom of the 9th with 2 outs. Unfortunately, the magic ran out in the nightcap as the Pirates lost 12-3. Pure joy, followed by crushing reality. That reality came for GM Cam Bonifay, too, as he was axed early in the season. Bonifay made some positive moves throughout his tenure, but numerous free agency mistakes and draft miscues doomed him. After a month-long search, McClatchy announced that Florida's assistant GM, Dave Littlefield, was the new man for the job. Littlefield took over before the trade deadline and got right to work. The heart of his first trade was flipping Jason Schmidt to the Giants for highly touted pitching prospect Ryan Vogelsong. Schmidt took his revenge on the Pirates early, pitching against them the day after his trade and allowing only 1 hit in 8 innings. He went on to make 3 All-Star games as a Giant. Vogelsong had a mediocre stint in Pittsburgh before being sentenced to the minors in 2006. He returned to San Francisco in 2011 and broke out, reaching the All-Star game and helping the club win 2 World Series titles. Not the best first impression. Despite all the negativity, fans still filled the seats. And why wouldn't they? PNC Park was, and still is, considered one of the best ballparks in the league. The views of the Pittsburgh skyline were enough to distract the fans from the disaster unfolding on the field in front of them. 2001 set all sorts of franchise attendance records, and the front office could probably have just sold tickets for patrons to walk around in an empty park. To illustrate this, here is the yearly attendance and millions of fans plotted alongside losses for every season during the streak. While there's some trends to look at here, let's really dive in and reduce it to seasons with 90 or more losses. These are the truly awful years, and the numbers mostly reflect that. Attendance rose in the 2010s when the team became more competitive, and in 2006 when Pittsburgh hosted the All-Star Game. But the notable outlier is 2001. If the figure says anything, attendance should be expected somewhere in the 1.6 to 1.8 million range. But that's not where it ended up. The fans just kept coming despite the Pirates never finding their footing the rest of the way. They did manage to win a game where they struck out 16 times against Randy Johnson, but they still sat at 49-84 following a dismal August. Dave Williams remarked that, "We don't want to be the team that gets stuck with 100 losses. If anything, that's what drives you to win. We want to finish strong." It looked like they might avoid that dreaded mark, starting September 6-4 before a scheduled day off. That day off turned into a week off. Among the attacks on 9/11 was Flight 93, where the passengers forced the plane down in Shanksville, just over an hour south of PNC Park. 9/11 completely changed our daily lives, and put into perspective how trivial things such as baseball really are. But it's in those trivial things that we can find comfort. The Pirates returned with an emotional game against the New York Mets, and the result didn't really matter. What mattered was the country slowly coming out of the nightmare to normalcy, something that the simple joy of watching baseball could provide. April of 2002. Somewhere surrounded by water, aboard the aptly named Bell 14, Derek Bell is being paid to not play baseball. That's not that unusual, of course, as most people are paid plenty of money every day to do things that, by all accounts, are not baseball. But things are different for the captain of this wayward ship. Just 1 month ago, Bell was in fact being paid to play baseball. Although raking a solid 173 is about the minimum effort in this line of work, Derek was feeling pretty good. He was the starter on the Pirates the year before, and, as everyone knows, once you're a starter, you're never not a starter again. Derek knew that, but the Pirates did not. So it's not Derek's fault that the Pirates brought in competition in spring training ahead of the 2002 season. Derek, in his own words, hadn't competed for a job since 1991. He's outraged and feeling a bit disrespected. So he sends out a warning to the Pirates. He tells them plainly, "Nobody told me I was in competition. If there is competition, somebody better let me know. If it is a competition, then I'm going into Operation Shutdown. Tell them exactly what I said." On the heels of a 100-loss season, the Pirates were left looking for answers. You'd think that after putting up a clunker of a record, the club would try and engage with fans, letting them know that the team was looking to put out a better product. In their mind, raising ticket prices seemed like the best way to do this. 3 games into the season, it appeared that this investment in the team's success had paid off. After securing a 2-1 series win against the Mets, the Pirates had claimed their first record over 500 since 1999. Sobering as that was, the team was on a generally strong trajectory by mid-April. They were 9-5 during a stretch that included 7 straight road wins, a first for the team since 1987. Lloyd McClendon seemed cautiously optimistic about the team's prospects, but maintained that the regulars have to realize there are guys on the bench capable of picking them up from time to time. We don't need anybody to kill themselves. April 17th, 2002. Aramis Ramirez steps into the batter's box against Brewers pitcher Ben Sheets and takes a pitch square in the butt. He wastes no time in going after Sheets. His battle plan is simple. First, he disorients his opponent with a wild throw of his batting helmet. Sheets is unfazed and counters with his glove. Enraged, Ramirez charges the mound and engages in a shoving match with Sheets. Both teams get involved. When the dust settles, Ramirez is dealt an ankle sprain to pair with his immediate ejection. He's out for almost a month. Before the injury, Ramirez was crushing at the plate with a .407 average. After returning, his batting average plummets to .223. But this wasn't unique to him, however. The entire team stunk offensively, holding the worst team batting average in the league and putting up 16 less home runs despite Brian Giles knocking in 38 on his own. There was one home run that stood out, although it didn't come from the Pirates. Meet Darrell Ward. In 2002, he's in the final year of his tenure in Houston, and it happens to be one of the best of his career. Despite that, he'll bat .276 this season and only hit 12 dingers, but none of that matters during this at-bat. On a wayward pitch from Kip Wells with the bases loaded, he smacks the cover off the ball.
A long drive! It's headed for the water! It's splashdown for Darrell Ward in the Allegheny.
He became the first person in the history of PNC Park to land one in the river on the fly, and since then, only 3 others have done it. Pedro Alvarez and Garrett Jones would follow him later on, and both of them were notable power hitters during their time in Pittsburgh. Josh Bell would become the first player to knock 2 straight into the water, one of them being a monster 472-foot shot. Though they didn't count officially, Ryan Howard and David Ortiz both hit river shots during the 2006 Home Run Derby. And yet, despite these names, the very first river ball was a grand slam by a middling batter on a division rival team. It's just kind of perfect. The following season, Ward was traded to the Dodgers, where he put up his worst statistical season. After being released in 2004, he would sign with a team that was used to welcoming players in need of a career revival. At the end of the 2002 season, Lloyd McClendon popped champagne for the team. His players, he felt, had a reason to celebrate the season that had been. Their reason? They won 10 more games than the year before. Derek Bell might have felt reason to celebrate as well. Before the season had started, he was cut shortly after proclaiming the beginning of Operation Shutdown. He ended up not competing for a job again, which he was proud of before the season. In fact, Bell would never play another game in the majors after losing the job in spring training. In 2008, he was arrested on drug paraphernalia charges for the second time in 3 years. At the time of his arrest, he was unemployed. By the time 2003 rolled around, the champagne from last season had dried up. For the first time in decades, expectations were held by the fan base and ownership. Even the players felt like the atmosphere was different. Ownership tried to add kindling to keep the Bucks' fire burning strong, signing power-hitting outfielder Reggie Sanders and trading for first baseman Randall Simon to bolster a solid offensive core. Jeff Suppan was also signed, adding to a rotation that looked poised to grow from last year. Wanting to get the fans excited, Pirates marketing had to come up with an unforgettable slogan, especially following the criticism of the last one being all about the ballpark.
Come see us play. Come see us play. Come see us play.
Or just plead for better attendance figures? On the field, there were still questions to be answered, as Robert Dvorak kindly points out here, but the time for questions was up. The time for answers was just beginning. The Pirates came out strong, sweeping the first 3 games to spoil the Reds' Great American Ballpark debut. After 10 games, looking great, 7-3. But then the streaks arrived. 3-game losing streak, 1 win. 3-game losing streak, now a 4-game winning streak. Nice, but wait, here's a 7-game losing streak. All of a sudden, the Pirates were 14-21. Another 3-game losing streak later, and Pokey Reese goes down to the disabled list. Injuries struck the pitching staff as well, most notably Chris Benson, who struggled with a bummed shoulder throughout the season until he joined Pokey on the DL in mid-July. His .497 ERA was among the worst of the Pirates starters in 2003, but to be fair, only Suppan and Kip Wells had ERAs under 4. An injury to Josh Fogg forced him to leave his April 20th start early, bringing in Solomon Torres to shoulder the load. Torres had been out of baseball for 5 years before the Pirates picked him up in 2002, and he had a masterful outing with 5 shutout innings in relief. However, this game was more remembered for the 4th inning. Torres' first pitch to Sammy Sosa took off and lit up Sosa's batting helmet, taking a chunk out of the helmet and the slugger out of the game. Torres ended up as one of the better arms in a bullpen, also bit by the ERA bug, as Nelson Figueroa's 12 appearances ended up as the only sub-4 ERA there. Mike Williams actually had an All-Star Game appearance this year, but he became a trade casualty mid-season. As much hope as the Pirates had going into this season, they entered the All-Star break 9 games under .500. However, they had already made their mark on the baseball landscape that year. Or, rather, Randall Simon had. The setting was Miller Park in Milwaukee. Similar to the Pirates' pierogies, the Brewers have a tradition of a sausage race after the 6th inning. As the mascots passed the visiting bullpen, Simon, in his words, was just going to tap the hat of the costume. A pileup occurred when the Simon-struck Italian sausage lost its balance and tripped up the hot dog. The runners, 19 and 21-year-old girls, were treated for minor scrapes and didn't press charges, despite Simon leaving the park in handcuffs. However, Brewers executive vice president Rick Schlesinger was still appalled, calling it one of the most insane things I've ever seen inside a ballpark or outside a ballpark. Probably a bit of an exaggeration, although the situation was another laughable knock on the franchise. Simon became another casualty of the Pirates' lack of success and was later traded for outfielder Ray Sadler, who played his entire 3-game career for the Bucks in 2005. On July 23rd, just weeks after the All-Star game, Dave Littlefield pulled off arguably the worst trade in Pirates history. Aramis Ramirez, just 25 and leading the team in RBIs and batting .280, was off to the division rival Cubs along with veteran outfielder Kenny Lofton. In return, the Pirates received 34-year-old outfielder Jose Hernandez, known more for striking out than anything else, Matt Bruback, a middling pitching prospect who never reached the majors and was released after the season, and infield prospect Bobby Hill. Littlefield seemed most proud of acquiring Hill, so much so that he claimed he would change fans' opinion on the trade. Hill at least lasted more than one season, batting .267 before getting demoted halfway through 2005 and never playing in the majors again. It was a cost-cutting move that many saw coming, including the players, but the disastrous results made it hurt so much more. Littlefield attempted to defend the move with cryptic responses, shrugging off any thought that he might have gotten robbed. He even admitted that Ramirez was the kind of prospect the Pirates wanted to develop, but that $6 million cap hit in 2004 and impending contract extension was too much for the Pirates' purse to handle. Littlefield continued to demoralize the fanbase in 2003 as Brian Giles, the Bucks' power-hitting phenom since 1999, was moved for 2 prospects from the Padres. Littlefield endured further ridicule in the infamous 2003 Rule 5 draft, in which 5 Pirates prospects were taken in the first 6 picks. Farm director Brian Graham tried to put a positive spin on the situation, but the laughter in the draft room told the whole story. The most damning aspect about it was that the Pirates had 3 open 40-man roster spots that Littlefield decided not to use. While the Pirates recouped around $250,000 from the losses, Littlefield's mystically vague responses continued to frustrate a fan base that endured so much turnover that season. Miraculously, the Pirates finished 2003 with 3 more wins than 2002, but there was no champagne in the dugout when they left the field for the final time. Just questions about the future of a directionless franchise. Before 2004 kicked off, Dave Littlefield had his contract extended through 2007, much to the excitement of the fan base. He celebrated this with some more free agent pickups, including Chris Steins, Raul Mondesi, and the return of Randall Simon. Steins was coming off a career year in Colorado, but could only muster a .216 batting average and 1 home run before being released in July. He never played in the majors again. Simon might as well replace his bat with a sausage, batting .194, getting released in August. And then there was Mondesi, a power-hitting outfielder that had a history of contempt with management. On May 7th, he was granted permission to return home to the Dominican Republic to take care of a personal matter. The situation was murky as Mario Guerrero, a former major leaguer, filed a lawsuit against Mondesi, saying he owed him $640,000 for helping him become a better baseball player. Mondesi denied this, but went home to settle it, a decision the Pirates brass supported. Since he was on paid leave, it meant the Pirates had an empty roster spot that couldn't be filled. However, the expectation was that he would return to the team on May 11th, so it wouldn't be more than a week. May 11th came and went, with no sign of the Pirates' right fielder. On May 12th, he was put on the inactive list so that the team could fill the spot. It was revealed that Mondesi had told some teammates that he might not return, and an Associated Press report came out that he wasn't planning on playing baseball again in 2004. Rumors also circulated that he wasn't happy with his current salary, despite signing the contract that very offseason. On May 19th, having still not seen Mondesi, the Pirates terminated his contract. 10 days later, he signed with the then first-place Angels for an 8-game stint. The good news for the Pirates was that it opened more opportunity for someone that did want to play baseball in former 53rd round pick Rob Makowiak. On May 27th, the Pirates arrived home from St. Louis and went to bed preparing for a home doubleheader against the Cubs the next day. Makowiak, however, had to wake up early and rush to the hospital as his wife, Jennifer, needed an emergency C-section to give birth to their son. At 11 a.m., the Makowiak son was born, and Rob reluctantly rushed to PNC Park just an hour before game time. He started off the day pretty dismally, going 0-4 with 2 strikeouts. However, he had a chance to change that in the bottom of the ninth, where he came to the plate with 2 outs and the bases loaded. On Joe Burakowski's 2-1 pitch, Makowiak launched his first career walk-off homer.
Knock, whack, tallywhack! Give that dog a bone! Grand slam!
An unbelievable day to be sure, but one that wasn't over yet. Makowiak didn't start in the second game, but he was called upon as a pinch hitter with 1 on in the bottom of the ninth.
Makowiak was the hero of Game 1. Fly ball, hammered right center field. He has done it. I don't believe it.
On the first pitch, Makowiak cranked a 2-run shot to tie the game and send it to extras, where Craig Wilson was able to walk it off. A storybook game for the most unlikely of players. 2 young players in particular were providing hope, Jason Bay and Oliver Perez. Both were acquired in the Brian Giles trade, and both were lighting it up. Perez struck out 239 batters in 196 innings and posted a sub-3 ERA for an otherwise dumpster-fire pitching rotation. Talk about bringing the heat.
Lots of heat.
Bay smacked 26 home runs and burst onto the scene, even turning in an 8 RBI performance in one game. At the end of the season, he was honored with the franchise's first National League Rookie of the Year award. Jack Wilson was quickly becoming a fan favorite at shortstop, batting .308 and claiming a Silver Slugger. He also became the first Pirate with 200 hits in a season since Dave Parker did so in 1977. He arrived in Pittsburgh in 2000 via a trade with the Cardinals and, despite only having played at the AA level, started at shortstop in 2001. Unfortunately, Wilson was hospitalized with an appendectomy in December 2004. Despite his bat slowing a bit following his recovery, 2005 saw Wilson finish as the runner-up for the Gold Glove, break the club's record for double plays turned in a season, and at one point go 31 straight games without an error. Despite the breakouts, the Pirates still regressed to 72 wins, the first step back since Littlefield took the helm. This regression came with some heavy roster turnover regarding some former stalwarts. Chris Benson got the axe, surprisingly not due to his wife's antics, netting the Pirates Jose Batista, a prospect they had lost in the Rule 5 draft, and new third baseman Ty Wigington. Littlefield reportedly rejected an earlier offer from the Phillies, who had offered AA prospect Ryan Howard for Benson. Littlefield felt confident in a similar prospect in Brad Eldred. Eldred would go on to play 74 career games for the Pirates and bat .199 with 47 hits and 99 strikeouts. I think we can trust Dave on this one, though. For Pirates fans, the biggest loss came after the season, when the club traded Jason Kendall to the Athletics on Thanksgiving Day 2004. Drafted 23rd overall in 1992, Kendall blossomed into one of the pillars of the club after their playoff drought began. Over his 9 years in Pittsburgh, he batted .309 and made 3 All-Star games. He was also a force on the base paths, setting numerous league base stealing records for catchers. However, injuries slowed his speed, and the team was never able to build around him. He was the final member of the team that bid Three Rivers Stadium farewell, the former face that was supposed to stop the losing and bring the Pirates back to relevancy. That day never came for Kendall. Jason Kendall was one of the few draft successes for the franchise following their playoff exile, with their first-round results proving especially bad. Aside from the players that they could have acquired that turned into superstars, the Pirates either failed to develop their players or badly mismanaged them. In 2002, with the number 1 overall pick, the Pirates opted to go with Brian Bullington, who Littlefield immediately hyped up, saying, "We feel comfortable projecting him as a number 3 starter." Wait, what? Most saw this for what it was, a signability pick. To Bullington's credit, it took him only 3 seasons in the minors to make his major league debut as a September call-up in 2005. He lasted 1 1/3 innings in his first start before leaving due to injury. A shoulder labrum tear kept him out of 2006 entirely. He was solid in AAA through 2007, but a rough stint for the Pirates in 2008 led to him being placed on waivers, where he was grabbed by Cleveland. On August 15, 2010, while pitching for the Royals, Bullington pitched 8 innings and gave up 1 run against the Yankees, earning his first and only career win in the majors. In what would be his final major league season, he finally had a reason to smile. 2001 was infamous for the Pirates nabbing first baseman John Van Benschoten 8th overall, coming off a season where he led the nation in home runs. Reportedly, a coach grabbed the bat out of his hand during his first minor league season and said, "You don't do that anymore." Van Benschoten did close out some games at Kent State, so the Pirates saw fit to convert him to a starting pitcher. Though he breezed through the minors, he struggled immensely when he got to the Bucks and posted a putrid 9.20 ERA and a 2-13 record over 3 seasons. He ended his career issuing more walks than strikeouts. And then there was 1999, where the Pirates took stud high school pitching prospect Bobby Bradley. The 19-year-old started out strong in Class A, with a 2.14 ERA and a trip to the Futures game. However, trouble started brewing early when he missed the second half of his first minor league season with elbow troubles. Halfway through the next season, it was determined to be a bone spur. He had surgery to remove that and missed the second half once again. Later that year, he required reconstructive surgery on that same elbow, forcing him to miss all of 2002. In early 2003, it was his shoulder that required surgery, his third since being drafted. In 2005, sporting an ERA over 13, Bradley was released, having spent time on the DL every season since he was drafted. He would go on to sign a minor league contract with the Florida Marlins, but after one day in the 2006 training camp, he retired from baseball. He never made it to the majors. "2005 marked the season the Pirates broke the streak. Not the streak, mind you, but their 3-season streak of winning 70-plus games. They finished with 67. It's the kind of season that truly defined the mid-2000s Pirates. Disappointing and utterly forgettable. It was a season where baseball happened and the Pirates were just along for the ride. Once again, it was time for the marketing team to cook up a new slogan. Let's see what they came up with this time. Can't be nearly as bad as 2003. Oh, come on, really? Well, since this is a diner now, let's check on our favorite Pirates chef, Oliver Perez. He must have left his oven on because he got burned all season, producing a horrid 5.85 ERA. His most notable outing came on June 28th, where, after giving up 4 runs in 5 innings, he went down into the dugout and used his foot to take out his anger on a laundry cart. A surprisingly durable laundry cart at that, so much so that it caused 3 fractures in his toe and cost him 2 months. Perez's decline from 2004 was astonishing to say the least. Pirates coaching staff apparently tried to completely remake his pitching motion, and the results spoke for themselves. It's not as if his offense was to blame, as the run support he received per game nearly doubled from 2004. He just seemed to lose his command as he saw massive increases to his walks and home runs per 9 innings, and a decrease in his strikeouts. It wasn't just Perez. The 2005 Pirates starting rotation had 4 of the 8 worst individual ERAs in the league. The lone bright spot came with rookie Zach Duke, for whom the Pirates sacrificed Bobby Bradley's roster spot. The 22-year-old went 8-2 with a 1.58 ERA in 14 starts. The offense had few bright spots, but Bay and Wilson continued producing, with Bay standing as the only Pirate with over 12 home runs. Freddie Sanchez was raking after taking over for the ill-fated Ty Wigginton at third. Bay also appeared in his first All-Star game and got a nod for the Home Run Derby. He represented hope for the fan base, although he might have been better off staying in Pittsburgh for the weekend as he launched 0 home runs in the Derby and was the only position player from either roster to not enter the game. Thanks, Tony La Russa. Littlefield's offseason moves didn't move the needle too much, most notably trading for 40-year-old catcher Benito Santiago. He lasted 6 games before ending up in the DL and getting released in May. And then there was Lloyd McClendon. Once again, he seemed like he had the Bucks on track with an 18-2 beatdown of the Devil Rays, pushing the club to a 30-30 record in June. However, once again, the team fell apart and went 37-65 before McClendon was given the boot. Pete Mackinnon was given the reins to finish off a disappointing season. He even got his own baseball card. Oh, wait, hold on. That's not Pete. There, that's Pete. Either way, Dave Littlefield was already on the hunt for a new man to lead the franchise, and he seemed to have found him. Former Dodgers manager Jim Tracy. This is Clayton Kershaw. Everyone say, "Hi, Clayton." Clayton is a good pitcher. If you made the case that he's one of the best pitchers in baseball today, you'd find yourself in pretty good company. Of course, that's due in part to the fact that Clayton was not drafted by the Pirates. Despite being available in the 2006 draft, the Pirates struck out hard with Brad Lincoln, skipping on Kershaw, Tim Lincecum, and Max Scherzer, all potential franchise changers. That being said, there's no guarantee that the Bucks have been able to develop any of these players into who they are today. In fact, chances are better that they wouldn't have. There were already growing concerns that Jim Colborn, who had followed Jim Tracy from Los Angeles, had permanently ruined Zach Duke's delivery. After a poor start in the home opener, fans had begun to level their complaints more at the coach than the player, a growing sign of the resentment the general fanbase had towards Pirates management. So, while the other three hurlers would begin decorated careers in 2006, the Pirates were stuck with a bullpen of broken arms. Not only was the Pirates' product not showing any signs of improvement, they were becoming increasingly overshadowed as the afterthought attraction in Pittsburgh. Their neighbors down the street had just brought home the Lombardi Trophy in January, cementing Coach Bill Cowher's Hall of Fame status and proving they had a legitimate superstar in Ben Roethlisberger. With continued success, the Steelers would maintain their position as the city's iconic franchise for years to come. Across the river, a young hockey player was coming off a rookie campaign where he broke several records held by Mario Lemieux, who is now the owner of the team. In 2006, that young player would secure his wingman and begin the rise of the Penguins from a forgotten, nearly bankrupt team to one of the NHL's best. The era of Crosby and Malkin had begun. But in PNC Park, crickets. Fans weren't showing up to games and were actively voicing their displeasure with Pirates management. Their attendance was stuck in the basement of the league despite the team's confident new slogan. "We will" graced billboards and promotional materials across the greater Pittsburgh area, promising vague goals the team hoped for in the coming year. "We will persevere. We will work hard. We will entertain." This drew pretty heavy criticism due to its easily editable nature. To make things worse, even Batman himself was criticizing the team after throwing out the first pitch. And if there's one person you don't want mad at you, it's probably Batman. There was one thing the Pirates had this year more than ever. Bobbleheads. Tons of bobbleheads, all kinds of bobbleheads, all your favorite buccos. Jack Wilson, Jason Bay, Freddie Sanchez, pierogies, and even recent addition Sean Casey. Acquired ahead of the 06 campaign, Casey brought a solid swing to the lineup, and he showed it early, batting .296 through his first 59 games with the club. It made sense to have a bobblehead night for him. Scheduled for July 29th, it was sure to be a popular giveaway at a sold-out game. With that timing in mind, it also made sense to trade Casey to Detroit for pitcher Brian Rogers midway through the season, on July 31st. Rogers lasted 2 years in Pittsburgh. He would pitch 10 games for the Pirates in 06, the first 10 he had ever pitched in the majors. Across those 10, he held an .831 ERA. After sinking to a .1350 ERA across 2 innings of work in 2007, he never played at the major league level again. Another thing to note, Casey didn't even make it onto the field on his bobblehead night. Pirates, however, had bigger fish to fry than a bungled promotional schedule. That year, PNC Park was set to host the 2006 All-Star Game. With all eyes on Pittsburgh, the Pirates quietly rode their way to a 30-60 record at the break. But baseball wasn't coming to Pittsburgh for the Pirates. They were coming for the stadium and the city. When the organization was facing criticism for their ticket price hike following the disastrous 2001 season, Vice President of Marketing Vic Gregovitz reasoned that the feedback we received from fans was that they enjoyed the ballpark experience this year and were trying to enhance that for next year. And they succeeded. PNC Park had become one of baseball's premier ballparks, but the one thing it didn't have was a winning team. The stadium was built for baseball, but the team wasn't. Jason Bay became the first Pirate in a long time to start in the game, and Freddie Sanchez managed to sneak in as a reserve. However, the two managed 1 hit and 5 plate appearances between them. Despite that, Freddie Sanchez went on to have a career year. Career year might be an understatement, actually. Here's a look at Freddie's first 4 years in the majors. Some ups, some downs, but overall a slight sign of improvement. And here's 2006. Going into August, Sanchez held a league-leading .346 average, ahead of Miguel Cabrera, Albert Pujols, and Chipper Jones. Baseball talent evaluators were baffled. Most of baseball in general was baffled. He just needed to keep up his pace. By September, Sanchez had started to fall off, but only slightly. He dipped to a .340 average, with Cabrera right behind him at .336. Another month passed, and the race hadn't gotten any clearer. In the penultimate game of the season, Sanchez and the rest of the team got blanked by the Reds, bringing his lead to just 3 points ahead of Cabrera. To secure the title, he needed just 2 hits. Freddie Sanchez was born, he had a severe pigeon toe in his left foot and a club foot in his right. Club foot is the most common birth defect in infants and requires wearing a corrective cast to fix the damage. However, Freddie's cast didn't take. His parents were told there was a chance he would never be able to walk at all. At 13 months, Freddie needed arthroscopic surgery to correct it. For years following, he required a mixture of walkers, hospital visits, and special shoes with metal bars attached. He had to learn to walk the hard way. Freddie Sanchez wasn't a huge-name success story like many of the other great batters of the 2000s. He didn't possess a magic stroke like the Pujolses, Cabreras, and Joneses of the league. In fact, he had bounced between the majors and the minors his entire career, finding little success outside of minor league ball. His first year as a full-time major leaguer was spent as a backup in Pittsburgh, and 2006 started out as more of the same. But when Joe Randa went down early, Freddie stepped in, hit the ball, and just kept hitting all the way to a title. Despite the success, he'd find himself out of Pittsburgh when he was traded to San Francisco in 2009. His first year as a Giant would see him miss a large part of the action due to left shoulder surgery. In 2010, the story was similar. Once he was back for good. Sanchez played a huge role in the Giants' postseason push. In Game 3 of the NLDS, down 2-1 in the ninth, Freddie knocked in a base hit with 2 outs, becoming the tie-in run en route to a Giants victory. In the NLCS, he batted .320 against the Phillies, but the World Series is where he really shined. First there was Game 1, where Freddie smacked 3 doubles in his first 3 at-bats, becoming the first player in history to do so. He would make this masterpiece of a catch to rob Jeff Francoeur of a line drive hit in Game 4. At the end of the series, Freddie Sanchez was the world champion. However, that catch against Francoeur would aggravate his shoulder once again, leading to 2 years of surgeries and injury stints that would cut his career short by 2012. When asked about his masterful Game 1 performance, Freddie kept it humble.